Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Welcome to Keys to Success, the podcast where we dive deep into real estate, business, and investing in New Mexico. I'm your host, Josh Waters, and together we will explore strategies, tell stories, and unlock the secrets to success. Today I'm here with Christine Turpen with PRMI Mortgage. Not only is she a fantastic mortgage lender, mortgage banker, she is also a real estate investor herself. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about real estate investing, a little bit of lending advice, because that's how you become rich. We're going to get into that a little bit later, but real estate investing this month is all about real estate investing. So how you doing, Christine? Thanks for coming and hanging out today.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Cool. So let's get into a little bit about yourself. So how did you get into lending? How long have you been there? A little bit about your investing background. Just give us a little bit about you.
Okay. So I'm 23 years in the business. I think the reason I do what I do is I grew up in apartments and I dreamed of living in a house the entire time because, apartments are very transit, that kind of thing. So at 22, I bought my first house and just absolutely, loved that as an avenue for, building wealth. And my goal was to own enough properties that it was my avenue for retirement. And I can say that, I've met my goal as
Awesome.
far as what I wanted to do.
Cool. So did real estate investing get you into lending, or did lending I know you said you grew up in apartments, so what came first?
Well, that's a good question. I just say that, I've had a couple different professions before this, and which I owned homes, but I think it was just my desire for other people to accomplish or achieve what I have been able to. And first was just home ownership.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the investing part of it.
Yeah, that's an awesome, and I love that point. Home ownership. Start with buying your own home. Put the horse before the cart kind of thing. I have a lot of people call me wanting to buy investments and how do I flip, and they don't own a house. Let's own a house first and then move.
Exactly.
I really want to get into, especially investing real estate today. So I know you have a couple investments. So how did you start? What was your first steps into that world?
So the very first thing was to, of course, own my own home. And then what you can do this obviously a couple different ways. But what I personally did is I ended up taking a home equity line out on my existing house. Okay. And just so everybody knows, you can borrow up to 90% loan to value on your primary house and use that for a down payment on the next one. And so what I really recommend is 30% down on buying an investment property because the interest rates are just so much better. So that's how I did it. I took out a home equity line and bought my first property. And then I was, I just put all the extra money because I was cash flowing them quite nicely into, I just invested it back because my goal was to own them all free and clear. But another avenue, that people do is and it's a smart way to go, is, they're in a house. They've decided, okay, I want to get into investing. They're really better off turning their existing house into a rental, especially where interest rates are right now. Because a lot of people are sitting on a 3 to 5% interest rate on a primary house.
Yep.
If they turn it into an investment house, that's what they're going to live with. And so then they, buy their next primary house, and of course, the down payment's lower, the interest rate is lower. So that is really a smart way to go.
Well, there's a huge misconception out there, even on purchases just in general, that you have to have 20-30% down, period. Which is, when you're especially younger, starting out, that's a lot of cash that most people don't have that. So that's a great way to get that investment rolling before you set roots in something and, jump in, live in a house. You can also buy a multi-family unit if you live in one. So that's another quick way to start out.
Yes, and I want to just, kind of give you some specifics on that in today's market. Okay, it will shift. But in today, yes, you can live in one unit of a duplex, triplex, etc. And we count it as owner occupied. The only challenge we're having right now, if it's more than 2 units, FHA makes us do this self-sufficiency test. And it has to, and right now with the way that interest rates are, it's not passing it so much. So it's harder to buy a 3 and 4 unit right now, owner occupied.
Yeah.
1 and 2, no, again, no problem.
Easy.
And then we'll change. Once the interest rates go back down, it'll change. But that's today.
Everything is always changing. It's a constant. So we'll definitely, dig more into this conversation because real estate's always changing. And the rules are always shifting, and the market's changing, and the best investment strategies are kind of always tweaking a little bit. It's kind of I feel like it's an everyday thing. If you're looking to get into investment real estate, I think I've got it actually right here. Yep. Recommend. I'm assuming you've read this one too, The Millionaire Real Estate Investor. That's going to be your first start into real estate investing. At least that's kind of where helps you think like an investor.
And another one that I read was Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh yeah.
Because it's a simple read, but it just helps you with that mindset to get out of the box of what everybody's doing and figure out how can I gain wealth kind of outside of the box. And
yeah, and I think mindset's a big part of it, is just having that mindset that you can do it and it's not an impossible task, and you don't have to have millions of dollars or even hundreds of thousands of dollars of liquidable assets or capital. There's plenty of ways to get into it and start building that portfolio. That's part of what I'm trying to do with especially new first-time home buyers. I think we've had this conversation in the past, is let's, instead of looking at it as your first home, and trying to find the right kind of cabinets and flooring, and because you won't be there 5 years, right? 5 to 7 years, maybe, But let's look at it as your first investment. Let's start building your investment portfolio now when you're young, and start making a plan so you can be a multimillionaire eventually and retire well.
And the nice thing is, again, for first-time buyers, there's programs you can get in very limited money. The way that houses are gaining appreciation right now, a house has appreciated 19% year over year from last year, 62% appreciation in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So there is your wealth.
Yeah.
And there is the equity that you can pull out of it to get to the next one.
Yeah, it's huge. The amount of wealth that you just even you feel like you're not doing anything holding on to real estate. It sits there and you make money. And I've seen a ton of, I was going to do a Throwback Thursday videos. I do all these little videos. And so I'm reading all these articles and looking into real estate history. And almost every single one is such a downer. And it bummed me out so much because they compare the 60s and the 50s and 70s to now, and they take percentages. No wonder people think it's a terrible time to buy and invest in real estate when that's all you see. And I think there's two ways of looking at it. You can either look at it as I should have bought, in the 70s, which cool, we could have, but most of us weren't, able to buy if we were alive then. Yeah. Or you can buy now and be the person that was holding on to that real estate. They bought for $70,000 in the Northeast Heights, and now it's worth $500. You can do that. You can complain about it, or you can buy a $500 and sell it, in the same time for well over $1 million. It's going to continue to go up, and you can either jump on board and make the money or rent.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and I can just tell you right now, on the loans that I'm doing for others, at least 40% of them are investment properties. So I can just tell you, investors are buying. And, they're buying in this market right now. Yeah. Because it is probably 40% of my business. To me, that's a good sign too. You've got people that own several properties and they're still going right now.
It's a perfect hedge against inflation. Because even if your dollar is going to inflate, the property value is going to continue to increase constantly.
Exactly. And I think one of the things that's good for us landlords in New Mexico, and I promise I do rule mine with a heart and not my pocketbook, but there is no ceiling on what you can raise the rents to. So, bad for tenants. That's why a lot of people, again, that are renting need to get out of that unstable situation, because, they can double your rent if they want to. But us as landlords, there is no cap on, what we can raise the rents to. So again, that's another good thing, in this state. Yeah. For investing.
Yeah, and I feel like most people are probably they're probably reasonable like you, and they're not out aggressively trying to screw people. But, you do have to go to market value, and you do have to, you are taking a risk. And with any investment, you have to manage that risk and the amount of, money, profits you're going to get. You can't just give it away.
Exactly.
Right.
And then one thing I wanted to cover too is, being a landlord. Now, I personally, the part I don't like vetting them. Okay. And I've owned rental properties for 28 years. So that's the only part I don't like. I have a friend, and she'll actually do it for you guys as well. She actually vets them for me. And, a lot of times I have 50 people to choose from. Yeah. And then she narrows it down to 2, and then I make the decision, and then I just take it over and I pay her a little bit of something. So anyways, but there, you can either manage it yourself or have a property manager. So personally, I like to manage them myself. I'm a control freak. Okay. And I have a handyman on call, and basically I just send that, they have a problem, I just send the handyman. I don't meet them. They make the arrangements. It's really easy. I mean, they really just run themselves. Okay. I collect rent and get my handyman or whatever out there when needed. But you can hire a property management company, and what most of them charge is 10% of the rent. And they, if something breaks, whatever, they just handle it all. They just cut you a check. I could say the one thing that I think is better about that, well, there's, it's your own decision, is that they will have no qualms raising the rent to a market rent. And unfortunately, when you do it yourself, it's a little more personal. And I, like all of my properties right now are a little under rented, because my people have been in there. If it was a property manager, they don't have it with a heart. They're just going to put it to, so I'd probably be making more money. Yeah. But, anyways, I just want everyone to know, you have lots of choices of which way you want to go, because as far as being a landlord.
Yeah, and anytime, whether you use a property management company or not, I always tell people you are now in property management if you own income property. So, make sure that that's something you're going to want to get into. It's a great wealth building. But, do research, do due diligence, ask lots of questions. I'm sure there's tons of people around you that already have plenty of properties that they manage or have somebody manage. Ask questions, because regardless of if you're hire somebody or do it yourself, you're now in the property management business, and you have to have some idea of what's going on, how everything is working. And I think you mentioned they've been in there for a while. Your tenants have, and it might be worth it at that point to have them maybe not at a market rent, but you don't have a yearly turnover where you're going to be possibly paying more because carpet's destroyed, paint's destroyed. So I think there's some give and take on maybe not charging the most amount of rent, but having a good tenant that's going to be in there for long periods of time. The other good thing, I tend to tell people to go to property management unless they're like in real estate or really want to get into that. Because also I'm sure you can have some stories where somebody will come to a sob story, and you have to make that decision of okay, do I cover my own mortgage on it and not collect rent, or try to start evicting these people? And it's you have to have thick skin to be in a property management kind of style.
And there's laws you need to know. I mean, you can only charge 10% of the rent in late charges. So and again, they're going to do the whole lease for you, and they know all the caveats that need to be put in there. So
and evicting is a long process too. If you need to get them out, there's a ton of laws. New Mexico is more of a consumer leaning state. The judges are a little more consumer leaning, so they're going to lean more towards the side of the tenant than the landlord. So having those things in place, having the legality is going to be definitely one of the first things. And with the property management company, that's what you're paying them for.
Exactly. And I don't want to scare people, because in the 25 years that I've been a landlord, In the very beginning, I brought somebody to court, and I haven't had any problems ever since then. So, like, let's just call it for 23 years, I've never had a problem in that respect. So I don't want, like, to scare people. The vetting process is critical. But
I think
luckily the evicting situation.
Yeah, vetting and due diligence and the different, obviously, research the house. I do market analysis on houses for rent all the time and what it's going to rent for and what the other renters, you can even see, sometimes you can see turnover in certain areas. So do research on the house, on the area. I think due diligence is 100% your first step on any real estate transaction, is just take your time, slow down, and do your due diligence, learn as much as you can.
And that's what's nice about working with you, because, again, not all realtors are, a lot of people realtors are okay with putting people in their primary, but they also don't know, they don't know how to research rents. They don't know how to do all of that. Yeah. So that's, obviously one of the huge advantages of working with you, because you do know all that. Yeah, and will help them to know what to look for.
Yeah, and look at it as a home and investment.
Exactly.
I'm trying to frame myself and my team as less of your friendly realtor. Of course, that's what we are. We help buy and sell houses. Everybody knows 7. Most of them are just that. That's what they're realtors. They're going to help you buy, they're going to help you sell, and then they're going to call you in 7 years when it's time to buy or sell again, and they're moving on to the next one, which is, fine for most people. But I'm trying to kind of work my team and train us to be your investment and wealth, specialists.
Exactly.
So we send out a yearly market analysis on any property that we've helped somebody purchase. So you see what it's worth. We do not just that, but we do a return on investment. So people actually know their ROI on their home, any other investments that they have. Because it's a long-term, you should treat it as just like any stocks or anything else you own. But unfortunately, for some reason, real estate's not treated like that a lot of times. It's just treated as like a car, or a toy, and it's not. It's an investment, and it's helpful. And most people don't know. They have no idea what their home is worth most of the time. And it's important to know.
One thing I feel like we didn't talk about is if people are worried that they are going to go ahead and just keep their existing house, and they are going to buy a rental property. Okay, we know that they're probably going to take the equity out of the house with a home equity for the down. But if they're worried about the debt ratio, that they don't make enough money to qualify for this next one, I do want to just explain to you how we do this. When we get an appraisal on that new house that they're going to buy, we ask the appraiser to tell us in writing what they could be renting it out for. We take 75% of that amount, and we get to offset the mortgage with it. So you can see that what we're having to add to the debt ratio is very minute. Okay. And we'll know up front, again, Josh helps us to know what we really probably could be getting for it from day one. Obviously, you're going to run your numbers and make sure it works. And then we're going to, put that calculation in and offset it for your qualification. So I just don't want people to be worried about, my debt ratio can't handle it with all the, with an additional debt, because we're going to offset most of the debt with what can be collected for rent.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people out there would be very surprised that they could afford being able to do that you can afford to buy another home. Mm-hmm. And I know a ton of people that are sitting on the fence right now, they're not quite happy in their house. Not to talk myself out of listings, I'd be happy to help you sell your house. But if you can keep it, it's always better to hold on to it. Real estate's a long-term game. I'm sure a ton of people would be very, very surprised at what the numbers actually are, and it's not as scary as you think it is until you really jump into it.
And I can just say, in all my years of real estate, the only thing I'm sorry about is the property I sold. And one of them I sold to my best friend. Sold it to her for about $100. It's a duplex. It's worth $280,000 now. So believe me, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So you're right that really, if you can hold on to it, you'll be so much happier.
Before we wrap up, is there any other big tips, any advice, anything we didn't we didn't cover that you can think of?
I think it's important that, anything we may not have touched on, that, we're available, and please call us and ask us any questions.
Yeah.
We are here because we want for people to, be the $1 million real estate investor, and we're here to help.
Yeah.
So please, I'd say the best thing, if we did miss something that we should have covered, don't hesitate to call us.
Yeah, and I think every situation is so unique in this, because every house is different, every area is different, every person is different. So, getting general advice is great. It'll get you started. But I think the earlier you start talking with, a realtor like myself or a lender like Christine, and getting that ball rolling, doing your due diligence is going to be huge. The earlier you get on it, the more prepared you're going to be, and the better off you're going to be in the long run. So I will drop Christine's information in the description, so everybody's got that. Of course, my information will be there, and you're welcome to reach out anytime and ask, any questions that you have. There's going to be a ton of information coming out this month, so that's the theme of this month, is real estate investing. So, watch out for that. But yeah, that was awesome. That was a lot of fun. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming out. And
yeah.
Of course, when you guys know anybody or run into anybody looking to buy or sell, send us over their contact information. We'll reach out and see how we can best serve them. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.